From Parts Unknown, I'm Mr. Hartgrave, and joining me from Generation Next Pro Wrestling is Kellen Craven. If this is your first time here on Parts Unknown, make sure you like and subscribe, and have a look around, as this channel is full of high-quality content, unlike this video that I made just to please the YouTube algorithm overlord. Bryan Danielson, the American Dragon versus Jon Moxley. Tell us what you feel.
I mean, I feel like I watched a legend get taken out back and put down. Like, good Lord, it was hard to watch at certain points in the best way possible. I didn't mean that in like.
Well, I mean, he
Daniel
did.
Bryson.
He did kind of tell him about the rabbits.
Gonna get a little place.
Okay, yeah, we're gonna get a little plate, and we're gonna have.
Yeah. I mean, it was hard to watch in parts in the best way possible.
Did you see it coming? Did you think this was going to be it?
In the back of my mind, yes. Okay. I kind of thought that there was no other shark to jump, and I thought that it got really weird when they forced Danielson versus McGinnis so early, like very quickly. It was like McGinnis is cleared. Here he is versus Danielson. Let's just go. Let's get it out of the way. Let's get it in before we go.
Yeah. You know what? It's very nice that was able to happen.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
That was it wasn't a guaranteed thing. So I'm glad that was able to happen. And there was one little tipper on this. You could see it coming, and that is on Dynamite before this. He came out to the final countdown, and they just let it play.
Yeah.
They just let it play.
Everything out of it.
And they just let him fight to the final countdown for like the whole song. And I was kind of thinking, like, is that something they would do if this wasn't his last appearance on Dynamite?
Right.
I don't know. This might be it. Because there was an interview with Claudio where Claudio was kind of like, this is going to be Danielson's last Dynamite, but kind of like, you know, in a heel persona. So wasn't really giving it away, but also kind of like Claudio's not a very good actor.
Never been his strong. He's sweet as can be. I met him at a convention one time. He's so nice.
But yeah, I felt the genuine sentiment in that he might be tipping it off, and then there's that moment. And I think it's nice. I mean, I guess the story is that this is very much what Bryan wanted. Bryan wanted to go out to Jon Moxley, and Bryan wanted to go out in a really weird, way. He didn't want to go out in a typical fashion at all. So this was absolutely what Bryan wanted, and I can't fight with that.
Mm-mm.
I can have my thoughts about it. I could be like, oh, I wish this or I wish that, but this is what Bryan wanted. And I think that's really cool that AEW lets these guys who have earned this. If you can't say that Bryan hasn't earned, who to go out to and how he wants to go out, I don't know who the hell you can say it about.
Right. He's definitely earned it more than most.
That's it. That's all he wants. Now, I think Bryan has been on record as saying that as far as this being his last time wrestling, I don't know about it doesn't seem certain. He might be back.
Right. It was the end of his full-time competition. He will never be signed to another long-term deal, but I could see him doing numerous one-offs, actually. I don't think he's full-blown done.
He also did state that when he went out, he wouldn't be happy unless he left his soul in the ring.
Well, he definitely did, because he got murdered by a bag.
He was absolutely murdered. Though this time it was much more apparent that he was giving himself some breathing space.
Yeah, the spot didn't look as good this time.
Yeah, he was really making sure he could breathe, which is good. I don't want wrestlers to actually die in the ring.
Yeah, the least amount of death I can see is possible would be great.
What I liked about this was all the story development we got at the end. We got this moment with Yuta. With the bag handoff. It's great.
Yep.
Great things for Yuta. I'm sure Bryan is very happy about that. I'm sure that was part of what he wanted, was to put this mega rub on Yuta. He's got the mega heat now. I mean, I'm excited for the next time Yuta comes out and what the reaction will be.
Right.
I mean, people got to hate this guy.
I mean, he's definitely reluctant. He didn't want to do this. I don't think Moxley clearly wanted to do it more than the others, but it was more like a mercy killing than anything. And that was such a unique story and way to take this.
Yeah.
It was more like they're watching out for their friend in their mind. Like, we are going to do what you don't have the guts to do. You won't stop. We're going to make you stop.
You know what I also found interesting about this? Recently, some information was leaked. For the longest time, people just assumed that Tony Khan wrote every story in AEW, which was absolute horseshit. Was never the case. He always had a team of writers. He always had a group of producers. Because why wouldn't you?
Right.
And it came out recently that, this guy worked on this story and this guy worked on this story. What I found most interesting is the guy behind all of this recent stuff with the Blackpool Combat Club is RJ City.
Interesting.
Which is wild. And why?
Yeah, that's bizarre.
And why wouldn't you want to work with that guy?
Right.
After he did Tony Storm, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Like his fingerprints were all over that. And Tony Khan's were too. Actually, it was Tony Khan said in interviews that a lot of the Tony Storm stuff Tony Khan came up with and then worked on with RJ City. Because RJ City was the only one who understood what references he was making. He was referencing all these old movies and everyone was looking at him with like glassy eyes. And RJ City's like, oh yeah, I know what you're doing. And he's like, all right, fine, we'll write this. And I think that's where all this stuff comes from, because when this came out, everyone's like, oh, John Moxley's being a Nazi, which was like crazy, right?
Jesus, yeah.
Well, and I don't know if you know the story behind this, but apparently he was referencing a movie called Romper Stomper, which John Moxley might not have even known he was referencing if this was all coming from RJ City, right?
Right.
I mean, I think John Moxley is having a blast in this psychopath role.
Oh, yeah. This is where he's this is the best God. John Moxley has looked.
Yeah.
Besides like some Japan runs that I've ever seen him ever.
Physically and verbally.
Yeah.
Like everything about this version of John Moxley is like the best John Moxley. I love this crazy, insane dialogue that he's coming off with. Very much actually when you say RJ City, the dialogue that Tony Storm was spitting, that insane like poetry, is very much like what John Moxley's spitting on TV now. So I could believe it if you told me that he was behind some of that writing for both of those characters.
That makes sense. I could see the parallels and how they speak and carry themselves.
Yeah. And John Moxley's really doing, like, it's great. And I love that they saw that work for Tony Storm and then took it to such like a different character to put this kind of madness on.
Right.
It's great. I don't know where I'm going from there. Is that the end of the... It's great. Credits.
It's great.
Great. I don't know.
Oh,
we've been talking for 2 hours and I'm pretty much out. Are you out? Did you want to say anything else about this pay-per-view or Bryan Danielson and John Moxley?
No. It was just... there's not... This match was art, really, is the only way, really. But it was very, very gruesome, very, very... It was some disturbing art, but it was art. Very similar to the way that the Swerve and Hangman match with like the needle in the cinder block, where like it's brutal and you don't want to watch it, but it's so good. It was such a good match. I enjoyed the build. I enjoy the dark story where like nobody's really wrong. These guys are doing these heinous things, but at the end of the day, you can see where everybody involved in this is coming from. You can see where Yuta's coming from. You can see where Danielson's coming from. You can see where Moxley's coming from. Everybody's right, and you just wish everybody would just stop. And that's such good storytelling.
Yeah. What I wanted to throw out there when I was mentioning Romper Stomper is like, I think it's down to the look of John Moxley, some of the dialogue, but I don't believe there's like some kind of weird Nazi subtext to any of this, like that people are running with. And then I see mentioned a lot. I think that's like crazy. I think that they're just kind of taking the vibe of the main character. And I believe that if I've seen the movie, it's actually what they're referring to is like a classic, well-regarded movie. It's not like a piece of trash. It's not a pro-Nazi movie. It's an anti-Nazi movie. is what it is. So if they're taking inspiration from an anti-Nazi movie, that's something that people aren't saying. What they're saying is like it's pro or it's Nazi. They're not saying pro or anti. They're just like, oh, John Moxley's supposed to be a supremacist. I'm like, and maybe that's what he is being. Not a white supremacist, but like a wrestling supremacist, which is kind of, I'm picking that up. He feels that like John Moxley's whole thing is that it should be real, right? You should really be a tough guy. You should really be a hard ass to be the number one guy in the company.
Right.
You can't be fake. You have to be the best. If you have a neck injury, we got to put you down. Right? You're weak.
Right.
Nobody else can do it. I've got to do it. I don't want to do it, but it's got to get done.
Right.
And you've said you won't leave unless you're dead, so I got to kill you.
In the bag you go.
John Moxley's a scary fucking character, man. But I mean, you do have to up the bar. I mean, we've had Swerve. Swerve has been downright goddamn terrifying. And then Hangman up the bar on him. If you want to be the number one bad guy in AEW, you got to do some crazy shit at this point.
Right.
I mean, I remember. And if you want to top it, I mean, I think Moxley's done it.
I think so. There's definitely a level of like diabolical that goes into being a heel in AEW.
Yeah.
And I think Moxley has raised that bar even beyond what we've seen so far. It just keeps getting higher.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm terrified to know where it goes next, but I'm excited to find out.
He is I and I am him, and I'm the undisputed trend Nat Taven. And this dork behind the camera, some Melvin told me to say, grave diggers keep on digging. Whatever that means.
I am AEW wrestler and Ring of Honor tag champ Mike Bennett. And remember, grave diggers keep digging, but not the monster truck. Even though my son really likes that monster truck, I kind of like Son of a Digger, and so I'm going off on a tangent about monster trucks because my son really loves monster truck, but we're talking about the YouTube channel, so make sure, grave diggers, keep on digging, baby.
So this is Mark doing one half private party, saying what up to the grave diggers, and keep doing your thing, bro.
Alright, like, subscribe, and watch another video, or be cursed. If you're cursed, that means the grave diggers will keep digging your graves. So, you probably want to do it.